Every empire believes it's different. Rome believed it. Germany believed it. Even we believe it now. But history whispers the same warning. Money is never just metal or paper, it's trust. And once that trust breaks, everything built on it begins to crumble. 2,000 years ago, Rome ruled the world. Its silver coin, the denarius, was its heartbeat. But greed crept in, the silver thinned, and the empire's foundation, faith in its money, collapsed long before the walls ever did. Centuries later, Germany printed paper until it burned. Zimbabwe printed zeros until they meant nothing. Different times, same story. And now, it's digital. We don't melt silver or print paper. We click. We create trillions from nothing. We call it progress, but history calls it the beginning of the end. Empires don't fall when armies attack. They fall when belief does. The screen fades to black. A faint metallic clinking echoes. Coins striking coins. Soft at first, then faster, sharper, until the sound drowns everything. Then silence. Imagine this: a coin pressed into your palm. Heavy, gleaming, alive with promise. To a Roman citizen 2,000 years ago, that coin, the silver denarius, wasn't just money. It was Rome itself, captured in metal. Soldiers fought for it. Merchants trusted it. Families saved generations through it. When you held it, you held the empire's power. But here's the twist. The very symbol of Rome's greatness would become the quiet weapon that hollowed it out. Long before barbarians reached its gates, Rome was collapsing from within, not by war, but by money. Rome's ambition was endless: roads through mountains, aqueducts over valleys, armies across continents. Ambition demanded gold, but gold ran out. The emperors had two choices: tell the people the truth or cheat. They chose to cheat. They called it debasement, a polite word for corruption in metal. They melted coins, mixed silver with cheap copper, and pretended nothing had changed. Augustus's coins were 95% silver. 200 years later, Caracalla's were half that. A century after, Gallienus's coins had barely 5%. What once was wealth became an illusion of shine. The people weren't fooled. They could hear the dull ring of fake silver. Bread that once cost a coin now cost 10. Soldiers demanded more pay. Merchants refused bad money. Confidence, the invisible glue that holds all economies, crumbled. And once trust breaks, there's no going back. Inflation isn't numbers on a chart. It's the mother who can't afford grain, the farmer abandoning fields, the soldier turning against his own empire. Inflation eats more than savings. It eats belief. By the mid-3rd century, Rome was chaos. Invasions, plagues, civil wars. Emperors rose and fell like sparks from a fire. Beneath the blood and power games, money, the empire's foundation, was dust. Desperate, Emperor Diocletian tried to freeze prices by law. He issued the Edict on Maximum Prices, over 1,000 goods fixed, violators executed. But no law can command trust. Markets went dark, bread vanished, and fear ruled. Finally, Constantine replaced the denarius with the solidus, a gold coin that restored order. But it was too late. The Western Empire was already dying. Because Rome wasn't destroyed by swords, it was destroyed by the quiet hand inside its treasury, the one that kept striking coins that looked the same but meant nothing. Every empire thinks it's different. Every empire learns it's not. And centuries later, another nation would forget Rome's lesson. Its coins weren't silver, they were paper. But the result would be the same. Next, we travel to Germany, 1923, where money burned faster than the bread it was meant to buy. Germany, 1923. The streets of Berlin hum with a strange rhythm, the squeak of wheelbarrows loaded with money. Children play with stacks of banknotes like building blocks, and bakers change prices twice a day, not because they want to, but because they have to. Just a few years earlier, this same country was the industrial heart of Europe, disciplined, proud, unstoppable. But after World War I, everything changed. The Treaty of Versailles demanded reparations so crushing they seemed impossible to pay. And so, like Rome centuries before, the German government reached for the same illusion: printing money. At first, it felt harmless. The presses rolled, wages were paid, debts cleared, and officials promised stability. But soon, the marks multiplied faster than goods could be made. Prices began to rise, slowly, then all at once. By 1923, a single loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. Imagine rushing to spend your salary the moment you received it, because by sunset, it would buy half as much. Imagine children flying kites made from worthless bills, or families burning cash just to stay warm because it was cheaper than firewood. That was life in Weimar Germany. The mark had lost its soul. And just like in ancient Rome, those who owned real things, land, factories, gold, survived. Everyone else watched their savings turn to dust. Teachers, soldiers, shopkeepers, people who had done everything right became beggars overnight. Inflation wasn't an accident. It was desperation disguised as policy. When trust in money died, so did faith in government. Out of the ruins came something far darker: anger, fear, and the craving for a savior. Within a decade, that desperation would give rise to a name the world would never forget: Adolf Hitler. Every economic collapse begins quietly, a promise here, a shortcut there, but it always ends the same way: in chaos, poverty, and extremism. And yet history didn't end with Germany, because another nation, centuries later, would walk the same road, driven by greed, denial, and the illusion of control. Different continent, different century, same story. This time, it would happen under the African sun, in a country called Zimbabwe. Stay with me, because what happened there makes Weimar look almost sane. Now shift your mind to southern Africa, Zimbabwe, early 2000s. A nation once called the breadbasket of Africa, exporting grain and prosperity across the continent. But within a few short years, that breadbasket turned to dust. The signs began quietly: political turmoil, land seizures, broken promises, and then the same fatal temptation that doomed empires before: printing money to solve problems that printing money created. The government called it stimulus, reform, recovery, but what it really was desperation. In 2000, a loaf of bread cost a few Zimbabwe dollars. By 2008, that same loaf cost hundreds of billions. Inflation soared so high, the numbers lost meaning. 79,600,000,000% per month. Prices doubled every single day. People stopped counting. Shops stopped changing price tags. Restaurants replaced menus with chalkboards so they could update prices hourly. Families carried notes worth trillions just to buy groceries and still left hungry. Money became meaningless, and when money dies, society doesn't just weaken, it collapses. Salaries couldn't keep up. Workers were paid in the morning and spent everything by noon before prices doubled again. Teachers and nurses abandoned their posts. Soldiers demanded payment in food. Banks ran out of bills. And like Rome before it, the government tried to command trust through force, declaring that citizens must accept the worthless currency or face punishment. But you can't legislate faith. You can't print confidence. Eventually, people gave up. They turned to US dollars, South African rand, or bartered goods. The Zimbabwe dollar, once a symbol of independence, became a joke, a ghost of paper no one wanted. Think about that. An entire nation, rich in land, minerals, and human potential, undone by a single lie that value can be created from nothing. And yet, it's not a distant story, because what began in Rome, governments across the world are repeating the same play, conjuring money out of thin air, promising it's temporary, calling it stimulus, safety, or stability. But history doesn't care what name you give the lie. The result is always the same. Inflation isn't just a number, it's a mirror. It shows you who really gains and who truly pays. The powerful protect themselves with assets, property, and influence. The ordinary citizen, the saver, the worker, the dreamer, pays the invisible tax. Zimbabwe didn't collapse because it was poor. It collapsed because trust evaporated. Because the people realized their money no longer meant anything. And when that moment comes, when the illusion breaks, every empire, every nation, every system falls the same way, quietly at first, then all at once. But here's the question we never ask. What happens when this cycle isn't limited to one country? When every major economy on Earth plays the same game at the same time? Because after Zimbabwe came something even larger. The collapse of trust didn't stop at national borders, it went global. And the next chapter of this story isn't about silver or paper, it's about faith itself and the illusion that still holds the modern world together. The story isn't ancient anymore, it's now. The clinking of silver coins has faded into the hum of servers, the flash of screens, the whisper of digits moving through invisible networks. But the pattern, the one that destroyed Rome, Germany, and Zimbabwe, still beats underneath, just wearing a digital mask. We call it modern finance, globalization, progress. But strip away the layers of screens and systems, and you'll see the same heartbeat. Overextension, overconfidence, and the illusion that money can be infinite. For centuries, gold and silver anchored value. Then paper replaced metal. Now, numbers replace paper. And trust has moved entirely into code. Governments don't need mints anymore. They have keyboards. And with a few strokes, trillions appear. Numbers so large, they stop feeling real. After 2008, after the financial crash that shook the world, central banks promised it was temporary. Quantitative easing, they called it. Printing money to stabilize economies. But the printing never stopped. The numbers climbed. Debt ballooned. Every crisis demanded more liquidity, more rescue, more illusion. By 2020, the printing presses had gone digital. In just 2 years, The United States alone created over $4 trillion from nothing. Every empire in history had tried this trick, and every one paid the same price. Rome debased silver. Weimar printed paper. Zimbabwe flooded markets with zeros. Today, we flood the digital sky with data and debt. Inflation is no longer visible. It hides in the price of homes, food, and futures. But its bite is real. You feel it every time your paycheck buys less, every time savings shrink quietly while charts rise proudly on TV. It's the same story repackaged for the modern world. And yet, here's the cruel beauty of history. Collapse never announces itself. It comes disguised as prosperity. Rome looked invincible until its coins turned hollow. Weimar looked modern until its bills turned to ash. And today, the world looks advanced. Skyscrapers, satellites, AI. But underneath, the foundation trembles. The illusion persists because it benefits the powerful. When money loses value, those who own land, stocks, and hard assets grow richer. Those who live paycheck to paycheck lose everything. Inflation, throughout time, has always been the quiet war of the rich against the rest. A war fought not with armies, but with policies. And now a new chapter begins. Digital currency. Central banks across the world are testing central bank digital currencies. They promise security, speed, and transparency. But behind the polished language hides the same danger: control. When money is code, it can be rewritten. When currency becomes programmable, freedom becomes optional. Imagine a future where your money can expire if not spent in time, where transactions can be traced, paused, or denied at will. It's efficient until it isn't. It's safe until dissent becomes unsafe. History tells us that when trust is replaced by control, collapse isn't far behind. Because at its heart, money isn't metal, paper, or pixels. It's belief, shared belief. And belief is fragile. Once lost, no decree, no algorithm, no leader can restore it. We are living in a time that future historians will study the way we study Rome, wondering how the world's greatest economies thought they could rewrite the laws of value without consequence. The empire isn't called Rome this time. It's global, digital, everywhere. And maybe that's why it's so hard to see the cracks forming, because they're not in marble walls or banknotes, but in faith itself. The faith that our systems will always hold, that the numbers on a screen will always mean something. But remember, the Romans didn't believe their coins would fail. The Germans didn't believe their marks would burn. The Zimbabweans didn't believe their dollars would vanish. And yet all three watched trust evaporate like morning mist. The pattern doesn't care about borders or eras. It cares only about truth. And the truth is this: when money becomes infinite, value becomes zero. So the question isn't if the next collapse happens, it's how fast. And when it does, when the screens flicker, when confidence slips, when the world realizes that debt cannot be printed away, it will feel sudden, but it won't be. It will be the end of a pattern 2,000 years in the making. So ask yourself this: how do you protect yourself when the illusion fades? What holds value when belief breaks? Land, skills, community, knowledge. These are the currencies that survive when paper, metal, and code fail. History never truly ends. It only repeats with new faces, new tools, and the same mistakes. Because every empire falls for the same reason, the lie that they're different. And somewhere, right now, a digital coin is being minted, a debt is being printed, a promise is being whispered. This time will be different.